F. Kennedy was with Billy Graham. And I had been sent by our publisher on the Arizona Daily Star, William R. Mathews. Mathews was a very busy publisher with international credentials who traveled all over the world. This was at a time when Fidel Castro was just coming to power in Cuba. And Mathews was sent by the US government to monitor the events in Cuba for the CIA. And he had come back with a report, which was at that time going to be very unexpected in government. Everybody thought Castro was going to be a very pro-democracy guy who was going to overthrow that terrible dictator, Fulgencio Batista, who had communist tendencies. Let me pull this. And so when Mathews came back, he came back with a totally different report to tell the Kennedy administration, no, this is not somebody you want to support. He's communist to the core. This was a shocker. But he was going to send this report, and I forget what the reason was that he decided not to go to DC. So he decided to send me with a report. And he said, if you're lucky, you may get to meet JFK.
Wow.
And I thought, wow, that'd be something, all right. Mm-hmm. So I get there, and I get to the gate. Oh my God, must have been 20 questions from the guards on the gate. Who the hell are you? What do you have? Who are you with? All this stuff.
What were your credentials?
I'm from William R. Mathews, the publisher of the Arizona Daily Star. And then, of course, you produce your newspaper credentials that every newspaper reporter has. Mm-hmm. And, okay, you can go through the east side. There'll be a guy meet you up there. Park your car there, here in this place. So I go up there. This guy comes down and says, are you with the JFK party? Well, how dumb do I have to be to say no? I said, yeah. And he says, they're right in the room to the side, here to the left.
Wow.
I have no idea who the hell I'm meeting. But I have this package from Mathews that I'm holding. Nobody's going to get it from me without killing me. Otherwise, don't show up back at the newspaper, So I walk into the room, and I look all around, and all of a sudden, God, he looks familiar. Is that Billy Graham?
Wow.
And so I go over and I say, is this the JFK party? And he said, yeah. Who are you? I said, well, I'm Dave Greene from the Arizona Daily Star. Okay. And I said, "You're Billy Graham, right?" "Yeah." And about that time, I think it was Sorensen came in, and he says, "Everybody will file out to the right." The presidential I forget what he called it, he didn't say committee, is meeting right now, and JFK is in this room.
Wow.
But you'll be allowed in there in a minute. Okay. So we go in there. Everybody's milling around, introducing themselves. You can look and see the table, and there's JFK. Boy, this is pretty exciting, you know? And so I told this one Secret Service agent, I said, "I've got a report that has to go to the president, and I can't give it to anybody else. Follow me." He goes up. He says, "Mr. President." JFK turns around. Says, "I got a reporter here from the Arizona Daily Star. He has a package for you from his publisher that cannot go to anybody else." And Kennedy says, "Oh yeah." And he walked over, he's holding out his hand like this. Grabbed his hand, shook his hand.
Wow.
And everybody's milling around, and all of a sudden almost everybody disappears.
Huh.
But I'm still there with him and Billy Graham. Well, nobody has told me to go anywhere. So I'm standing there, he's got the package. He hands it to the Secret Service agent. Says, "Put this on my desk."
Huh. Now, did he know? Did JFK? He was.
He knew what the report, I guess, was going to tell him.
He was expecting it.
He was expecting it.
Okay.
So Billy turns to him and says, "Well, are we free?" And JFK says, "Free as a bird." And I'm thinking, okay. And JFK turned to me and said, "You want to go with us?"
Oh my gosh.
Well, am I stupid enough to say, "Where are we going?" I don't care. So I said, "Well, yeah." "Well, come on then."
Take me to the moon.
And he says, "Car's supposed to be waiting outside and running." 2 Secret Service agents. We get in the car. I'm sitting in the back here. Billy Graham and JFK are in the front. 2 Secret Service agents, one on each side of me.
Oh.
I'm feeling very protected. But I'm thinking, where in the hell are we going? And the one Secret Service agent says, "Well, we can pretty much relax. We're still on grounds. We're still on White House grounds.
Uh-huh.
And we're driving all over the dang place."
Huh.
And then I find out it's the president's own little golf course. So they said, "Would you like to play around with us?" And I said, "Well, I'm not much of a golfer." "Well, go ahead and watch then, buddy, if you want to watch, if you just want to watch." And I said, "Thanks."
Nothing like this would ever happen nowadays, for sure.
Listen,
Oh
you know,
my!
But on the way over was the interesting part to me, because Kennedy and Graham got talking, and I remember Kennedy asked him, "Billy, does the Bible really say that Jesus Christ is going to come back at the end of time in the clouds of heaven and raise up the dead and then take the living up into the air with him to go to heaven? And Billy says, well, yeah. Well, why in the hell have I never heard that in all the years that I've gone to church every Sunday? And there was no response from Graham. And finally, he says, don't the Catholics know that and believe that? He says, well, that's what your church teaches, John. Why you've never heard it, I don't know. Well, I can tell you as a Catholic, as an ex-Catholic, all of my years up till the time I became a Protestant, which was in high school, I never heard a sermon on the coming of Christ. It was always, something else about this or that or the other thing. But anyway, but that was the most interesting part of the trip. Trying to remember what else was said in the car. Billy Graham was making arrangements. The reason he was there was to make arrangements for a broadcast that was going to be broadcast from the White House.
Oh.
And he had done this apparently with several presidents. And I found out that he was probably a pretty frequent visitor with JFK. And I always wondered, I never had the guts to ask either one of them, but I often wondered if he would have tried to convert Billy Graham from Baptist to Catholic, or if Billy Graham would try to convert JFK to Baptist or whatever.
Right.
But I never got up the guts to ask that. We got back in the car and went back, and we all had Pepsis. And they shook my hands goodbye.
Wow.
And, but I got several pictures because they were taking pictures for some event coming up. And Kennedy's photographer, I'll never forget him, he was some neat guy. But he said every time he came in the room, he would take a different picture of Kennedy doing something. And he said, hey, he said, if you want to be in any of these, just go ahead and sidle up to him. I'll take him.
Wow.
So,
do you have some pictures?
I have a couple someplace. I'll have to track them down.
Oh, we'd love to see those.
Well, but the biggest thrill for me was while I was there, Jackie came in. And she was getting ready to go out shopping or something, all dressed fit to kill.
Wow.
And I mean, she is one good-looking woman.
Yes. Yes, she
and
was.
When she walked in, every guy in that room was just like, and, but she just smiled and said, hi, goodbye, everybody, see you later. 3 Secret Service guys with her. And,
wow.
But yeah, that was quite an afternoon. And finally, one of the Secret Service guys come in and said, "Do you have any other business that you're here for?" To me.
Mhm.
And I said, "No, I just had a package to deliver to the president." "It's delivered?" I said, "Yeah." They said, "Okay. Then it's checkout time."
Wow.
So I said, "Okay." And I checked out. But I had a hell of a time trying to sleep that night at the hotel.
I bet. Oh my.
And,
Wow.
It was like you said before, it's kind of like Forrest Gump.
Just
You know,
fall
where-
into it
oh yeah, you know,
in
like
so
I
many
told you,
ways.
my whole life has been like that. And I think back on it, and I don't even tell many people because I've talked to some people about this or that or when I met so and so, and they look at me like, "Oh, you bullshitter," you know. Not worth it. I'm not trying to convince you of anything, you know.
Uh-huh.
But even people that I was introduced to when I was working as a cub reporter on the Daily Star. This is before I had a police beat. I'm just on regular assignment along with about 8 other reporters. And this is just to cover the routine events of that day, you know. They come over one day and said, "Put your name on the movie star guest list." Put my name on the movie star guest list? Yeah. "We'll tell you each morning who you get to go interview."
Wow.
So I said, "Oh, that's good." And of course, I'm dumb enough to think, "Oh, wow. Rhonda Fleming, Betty Grable." I've got all these in mind. And of course, I'm assigned to practically every one of the damn men. But I did get can't even remember her name now. Barbara Mandrell.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, she was a cutie.
Yeah, little Barbara Mandrell.
Yeah, she was a cutie. I got to interview her. And I got to interview Gregory Peck.
Oh.
And I got to interview your mind is going, kids. But I got to interview John Wayne.
Wow. I bet that was
Gregory
neat.
Peck. Oh, John Wayne was cool.
I bet he
He
was.
was a cool guy.
Yeah.
But you talk about Mr. Republican at that time. Oh, and he and, I think I told you this, he and Robert Mitchum did not get along at all.
Oh.
And they were in town to make a movie. Not together, 2 different movies going on. Tucson was setting for a lot of different movies. We get a call, the police got a call. I was just new on police beat at the time. Anyway, I'll come back to some of these movie stars. I interviewed a lot of the men. But we get a call at the police station one day. I hear it on the radio. Big fight and property damage, large property damage at now I can't even think of the damn name of the motel.
Well, it's been a long time ago.
The motel was a place, there was 3 big motels of the same kind around Tucson. And one of them always housed all of the movie stars that came in town to make movies.
Oh.
I can't believe I could forget that. Anyway.
You'll remember it.
Anyway, we get a call. Big fight, property damage. Get police over here as quick as possible. So, of course, I jump in the car and go over. Got to see what the hell's going on here. And I get there. And the police, they have John Wayne over here and Robert Mitchum over here. And they're both bloody as hell.
Oh, my goodness.
They went to war over politics.
Oh.
Mitchum was a dyed-in-the-wool Democrat, and Wayne was a dyed-in-the-wool Republican. And Wayne wanted nothing to do with Robert Mitchum because he was a liberal and he was a weed head, marijuana smoker.
Really?
Oh yeah, everybody knew he was.
Oh, I'd have never guessed that.
Well, Mitchum was a big marijuana smoker.
Huh.
And John Wayne would have no part of that. You know, that was. Well, anyway, they got into the bar at the same time. And one of them said something. That's all it took. The next thing, chairs and tables, and they smashed the big mirrors all behind the counter.
Wow. Well, now that would have been a good movie.
Well, yeah, it would have been a good movie.
Republican versus Democrat.
Would you believe it never even made the newspaper?
Wow.
Oh, even after you went there.
I had the whole story. Called for a photog. Photog got there, took one look and said, oh no.
Oh, would have been bad publicity.
Well, what the hell should that mean? You're a newspaper, right?
Huh.
But the word was out already from the police. We don't want this in the newspapers.
Oh.
Because otherwise they've got to arrest and go to court with John Wayne and...
Yeah. Okay.
And that's going to hurt our movie business.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
You know, it's all one hand washing another. To make sure that... So I get back to the newsroom. I said, you ought to have seen this mess over there. I said, I know it's at least $500,000 worth of property destroyed.
Wow.
And the two looked like they had just come out of Mortal Kombat. And I said, everybody over there is beside themselves. I said, and there was all kinds of patrons there at the time.
Wow. Just imagine being a patron and
viewing
all of that.
They're all going to go back home and say, how come nothing's in the paper about this?
Yeah.
Because if it don't go in our paper, it doesn't go out on the AP and that, see? So, and I'm half pissed off because it's a great story and I got it.
You're right. Yeah.
So, the next thing I know is I got an invitation by the chief of police to come to a meeting at the police station. So I go. And over here sits John Wayne, and over here sits Robert Mitchum.
Oh.
Cleaned up. But both showing that it had been a mean day. And here's the chief of police, Bernard Garmeyer. And he says, not here to write about this, David, but you deserve to be shown what's going on. Well, Garmeyer and I were pretty close, okay?
Mm-hmm.
More than one story didn't make it to the newspaper that could have. And I got stories from him that normally a reporter wouldn't get, type thing.
Mm-hmm.
So he comes out there and he's got this huge map of the city. And he throws it down on the table. And he says, "You two clowns," he says to these movies, "you two clowns can stand up now." And he took this big ruler and laid it down and took a big black pen and ran it down through the middle of the town.
Huh.
Said, "From now on, every time you come into Tucson, John Wayne, this is your section. And every time you come into town, this is your section."
Huh.
He said to Mitchum.
No.
And with that, he says, "You will both be out of here just as soon as you can finish shooting the scenes of your movie.
Mm.
And before you ever come back into town again, you will give us 24-hour notice.
Oh. Wow.
And you pass that on to your movie group, your..." And
Wow.
that was it.
Huh.
And they kept a guard with him now. The police department kept a guard with him the whole rest of the time they were in Tucson.
Wow. I mean, they must have really had it out with each other for that to have happened.
Well, I'm amazed that neither one of them were really seriously, they were seriously damaged when I saw them.
Yeah.
They were both bloody as hell.
Wow.
But to think the two guys, these are both big men.
I was going to ask you, I know John Wayne's supposedly a big guy. Mitchum, he's tall, isn't he?
Mitchum's tall, and Mitchum's wiry. He's one of these very much muscle. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, it was two big, mean guys going at each other. But, well, that was the story of Mitchum and John Wayne, anyway. And the other fun we had, all I can do to remember these names. If you remember the movie star that played the Confederate in the TV series.
A male?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Good, look at
Would
Cochran,
you know?
Steve Cochran.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Steve Cochran was, well, what we forgive me, what we in the newspaper industry called we had a name for the guys who were constantly chasing women and betting them.
Mm.
And Steve Cochran was high on the list.
Mm.
And the most excitement we had at the police station otherwise, besides John Wayne and what's his nuts, was when Steve Cochran lost his little black book, which was not so little. that had the name, I guess, of every movie star he slept with, plus every other woman that he slept with in whatever city he happened to be in making a movie. And the word went out, find this damn book. And I have to report to you that as far as I know, that book is still floating around somewhere because I don't think it was ever found.
Wow.
And he checked in with the police department every day. Any word on my black book?
Oh, maybe does he, I mean, do you think it was stolen? Somebody stole it.
Well, I'm sure it must have been someplace where they could get at it easy. And he was a drinker.
Oh.
So, you know.
Yeah.
And everybody knew about him as far as, you know, being after the women all the time.
Yeah.
Wow.
So.
Yeah, look at the tree. Look at the tree.
Yeah, it's pretty.
Yes. Christmas 2024.
Yeah.
Those were some of the things I remember from the police beat.
Now, were you in, yeah, pardon me a minute. I just thought of Marilyn Monroe. Were you, you never had any, you didn't interview her?
No.
Okay. What year did she die? Was it 64?
No, she
66?
died.
I forget which year she died.
It was long before that.
Okay, long before you were...
No, she died. Well, I never interviewed Marilyn Monroe. I went to Marilyn Monroe's apartment when she was killed. Oh, by the way,
yeah,
it was common knowledge among police sources that the CIA did her in.
Yeah, yeah.
We've
heard that too.
She was having an affair not only with JFK but also with Bobby.
Yeah.
And the powers that be in the CIA and that. Marilyn had a wide circle of male friends, many of whom were foreigners.
Oh.
And what year was it, by the way, that she died? I'm trying to remember.
Was it 62?
Sounds right.
It may have been 62. Yeah.
Sounds right.
I'd have to look on my phone.
Well, it had,
Why don't
it had to be before the assassination of JFK.
Right, right.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Because
Yeah.
wasn't she going to spill the beans or
Oh,
something
yeah.
on JFK?
He supposedly had promised to divorce Jackie and marry her.
Oh.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you right now, I did interview a CIA agent who said he would tell me everything as long as I didn't print any of it.
Wow.
And he said, we've got that on tape, where JFK told her.
Oh.
I'm serious.
Wow.
I'll divorce Jackie and marry you.
Huh.
So that was real.
Yeah. Well, that's what we had heard too. That
The lady that was on What's My Line, what was her name?
Dorothy Kilgallen.
Dorothy Kilgallen the same way, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, she was killed. Yeah. Dorothy got to
Kilgallen.
be so much inside the Kennedy assassination that she had so many enemies all over that it was almost impossible to nail down who in the hell actually did the job. But there wasn't much question that she was done in with a shot.
Now, did you ever meet her, Dorothy Kilgallen? I mean,
I talked to her on the phone several times, but I never met her.
really? Oh, wow. Yeah, okay, Marilyn died August 4th, 62.
Yeah.
August 4th, 62. And her date of birth was June 1st of 26. She died at the age of 36 of an overdose of barbiturates.
Yeah.
A hot shot.
Called a hot shot?
Yeah.
Now, what's the hot shot?
Yeah. Up the rectum, right?
No.
Well, it's any shot that is given you that is going to kill you.
It's not up the rectum.
Well, now
It
we
doesn't
heard.
have to be up the rectum.
No, it don't have to be.
That's what we have heard, though, that they gave her a deadly enema.
Well,
That may or may not be
That
true.
was in one of the reports,
Yeah.
but I don't think they ever established that was.
Huh.
With a hot shot, you can give it anywhere.
Yeah, but there would be needle marks, wouldn't there? And maybe with an enema, I think they said that it was less traceable.
Well, and that was one of the reports, okay? But you got to remember there was about 70 different reports
Yeah.
Wow.
from different agencies and different medical. That's the thing about all these movie star deaths
Yeah.
and very prominent people. A lot of times you get a lot of different reports from different agencies.
Yeah.
Depends on what their sources say.
Yeah.
But the only thing we knew for sure was that, yeah, they knocked her off. I mean,
Yeah.
shut her up now.
Wow.
And, but, yeah, when you live close to those guys,
Yeah. You're taking your own life in your own hands,
oh,
or their hands.
this next administration is going to be something to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, we feel so too.
It's going to be one.
Oh, we gotta be careful what we say. Remember?
But, oh, for this.
Well, yeah, we gotta.
Yeah, YouTube.
It's easier if you ask me the questions than
Yeah.
I try to dig them up.
Now, you also were a reporter when Kennedy got shot. Now, what did you hear and what came about that you knew of the Kennedy assassination?
We thought it was very instructive to us as a news organization in Tucson that the day of the assassination, Joe Bonanno was home in Tucson, which normally before any holiday like Thanksgiving or Christmas or anything like that, he would not normally be home. But it was weird that he and his son, Bill, who was his capo regime, his underboss, and the whole family, the kids, and Joe's wife, Faye, were all lined up on the couch watching TV. And the Star had a long-standing offer whenever the family meets again, can we come in and take a picture of the family? Now, they had no reason to be inclined to say yes. But for some reason, on the day that we were going to discover that Kennedy was assassinated, they called the newsroom right before JFK was shot.
Yeah.
And send your photographer over, and then you can get a family picture of us watching TV. In other words, I'm here with my family. Don't try laying it on me.
Okay, now explain who that family was.
It's the Joe Bonanno family. Bonanno was one of the 5 major mafia bosses of the entire mafia commission in the United States. There are 5 bosses there. Vito Genovese, and Joe Bonanno, and see, isn't that terrible? I mean, I could name all 5 bosses for.
And how did they tie in to
Well,
Kennedy?
the word was out that the hit on Kennedy was a mafia hit. Now, you got to remember that this was at a time when the Kennedy administration had the mafia before a federal grand jury in D.C. Okay? So you had the Kennedy administration investigating the mafia. Okay? The mob bosses were being called as witnesses to different things. Their soldiers and their lieutenants and their caporegimes or captains were all testifying about one thing or another. Bobby Kennedy was out to indict.
Oh, yeah.
To bring them to court and try them. They were being questioned about homicides, burglaries, the rackets of all kinds, prostitution, gambling. And this was a big deal because it was all going public. Okay, it was all being televised. And Bobby had become a real hero to the American public as the Attorney General of the U.S., while the Bonannos and all of those were being looked down on and vilified, and so there was a whole lot of bad blood going on, okay? And so for the 5 bosses, each one controlled mob families of a couple thousand members. So, and they're active every day. Out doing whatever it takes to make money for the mob bosses. So there was a whole lot of interplay going on And then you had the Republican Party at the time, who really did not offer much help to the Kennedys because it's a different administration. It's a Democratic administration.
Yeah.
So you think, you know, that you got all of government behind you when you only have half of it. Okay? And so these things were really popping about the time that Bobby Kennedy, as a Attorney General, was the most active Attorney General that the United States has ever had. He had his hand in practically every mob pocket, foreign pocket, you name it. And one of the pockets that he was into was the mob boss of Louisiana, Carlos Marcello. Now it turned out that Kennedy found out that although Marcello had been the mob boss down there for years and was active all over the country, to give you an idea, his authority spread not only from Louisiana to all the way to Sam Giancana in Chicago. These are two mob bosses that worked together on several different operations. It turns out that Marcello had apparently put out a contract on Bobby Kennedy. Because he had called Carlos as a witness and made him come in to this grand jury, where suddenly he was exposed on TV. You know, where he had to identify himself, and the feds stand up and say, here's Carlos Marcello, the mob boss of Louisiana, involved in illicit activities across the United States, as far west as Chicago, etc. And Kennedy laid out all the possible crimes. He accused him of having killed several different people, robbed this and that and the other thing, robbed Lufthansa Airlines and all these kind of things. To which, of course, Marcello pleaded, no, that's not true. But it pissed him off to the point where he was exposed for the first time, and he decided he'd issue a contract on Bobby. When Bobby found out, instead of getting all PO'd about it, he decided, I'm going to get rid of this son of a bitch for good. And he discovered that Carlos Marcello had been here for years, and everybody just assumed he was a citizen. But he had never become a citizen. So he could be deported. But Kennedy didn't want him deported.
Huh.
Bobby decided to deport him himself.
Mm.
So he got some FBI agents, and one night they showed up in front of Carlos Marcello's beach house there in Louisiana, New Orleans, right outside New Orleans. And they simply walked in, put handcuffs on him, put ties around his legs, threw him in the back of the car, took him out to an airplane in D.C., and drove into the desert, or into the jungles of Bolivia.
Huh.
And there they took off the handcuffs and took off the things and tied a
Noose?
no parachute thing.
Parachute?
Thank you. Tied a parachute on him and dropped him out of the plane in
Wow.
the middle of the Brazilian jungle at
Wow.
night.
Mm.
Oh my.
Said, so long you, well, CS her.
Well, was he able to pull
He was
this
able-
cord?
He was going to be able to get down into the jungle all right,
Oh, okay.
but they didn't figure him to ever survive the jungle.
Wow. Wow.
About 3 months later, the family got a call, and it was him. And he was in Mexico.
Oh my God.
He had not only come through and survived the Brazilian jungle, then he passed through all these other places in South America, into Mexico, and then called his family and said, get a car down here.
Oh no.
And they did. And when Bobby found this out, he was really pissed. But he was busy with other things at the time. And Carlos had already years ago issued a contract on him. And the word supposedly went out from the FBI that Carlos, if anything happens to Bobby, you're a dead man in the next 2 hours. Well, apparently he got thinking about it and thought, well, revenge would be sweet, but not if I'm going to get dead in 2 hours. And so that's the story of what happened with that.
Wow.
Kennedy did these kind of things pretty regular. He was not anybody to mess with. And all John ever said was, I don't want to hear it. Do whatever the hell you have to do. I don't want to hear it. And so whether he ever knew about Carlos until Carlos came back from the dead, nobody knows.
Now, you were still reporting when
Yeah.
RFK got killed, right? By,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah.
Sirhan Sirhan.
Yep. The Sirhan Sirhan was programmed. I'll tell you even who programmed him. I know the doctor's name.
Oh.
It's in my files. Dr. T.E.A. Vanderhoff. He was a psychiatrist, psychologist from Tucson, Arizona, employed by the Joe Bonanno family.
Oh.
And they,
Wow.
after Bobby was killed, they sent von Diedenroth I've got this all down, but what happened was the CIA used von Diedenroth to program Sirhan Sirhan. Sirhan Sirhan, this whole idea that it had something to do with another country, and Sirhan Sirhan was being some kind of hero for the country by killing Kennedy. No.
Yeah. You think it was done by like MK Ultra? That kind of
Well,
programming?
you gotta know how this web works. Every time I'm talking to you about something, I'm trying to envision the entire web. T.E.A. von Diedenroth is psychologist and psychiatrist for the Bonanno family in Tucson, but he's also working for the U.S. government. He's a brilliant hypnotist and mesmerizer and all of these kind of good things. The CIA used him for several different things to program some of their people.
Wow.
They're sending a guy out to kill an ambassador from somewhere. They would use somebody like von Diedenroth, call him over to wherever they were to program this guy.
Wow.
So that whatever happened to this guy that they chose as their mark, the one who was going to do the assassination, no matter what happened in his life on the way to do this, you could never stop him. Let's say he was in an auto accident, badly injured. He isn't going to wait for any ambulance to get there. He's got to fulfill this mission.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing with von Diedenroth. So von Diedenroth was used. Now you got to know where Sirhan Sirhan is. He's not an American citizen. He's employed by Desi Arnez, Lucy's hubby.
Oh.
Desi worked for the CIA. Okay.
Really?
And for Cuba.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
And even after Cuba fell into the hands of Castro and them, Desi still worked for the Cubans. He was always a spy for Cuba against the U.S. too.
Wow.
The CIA knew about all this. This was not new to them. But Sirhan Sirhan was a stable boy in the Desi Arnez stables. Desi ran racehorses. Okay. And so, when Sirhan Sirhan ended up shooting Bobby Kennedy, the CIA puts two and two together and says, wait a minute. If he actually shot JFK, or I mean Bobby, he wouldn't have done that without being programmed. So who programmed him? And that's when I first learned about T.E.A. von Diedenroth. And it was David Hale, the FBI agent friend of mine, who told me watch for news of an assassination. This was before it ever happened, before Sirhan killed Bobby.
Wow.
It was a couple of weeks before, and there's always assassination someplace, the mob especially. I'm not paying too much attention. But then when it came out that it was Sirhan Sirhan, because David Hale had told me, because T.E.A. von Dienroth is over in California, and he's programming a subject right now.
He's
programming a subject for an assassination.
Wow.
What TEA does is come in, takes this person that he's going to make into an assassin, and convinces them why they need to shoot this guy. And then they provide the gun and make sure you know how to use it, all that kind of stuff.
wow.
And then they program you how to get to him. Remember, this was in a crowd in the back of a banquet hall in L.A. And there were those who testified, in fact, later, that they saw Sirhan Sirhan come in and that he had never had a gun in his hand.
Wow. Huh.
Wow.
Now, this is after I've been told that Dienroth programmed Sirhan Sirhan.
Huh. You think he was a patsy just like Lee Harvey Oswald?
Okay, let me tell you what I found out later. Almost a year later. I'm talking to the talking to the pathologist from Los Angeles. We're just sitting in the bar drinking a beer together. And I asked him what big cases he'd had. And he said, well, I got one I could tell you about. You've got to promise you're not going to publish it. And I said, well, if it's that good, how could I promise that? He says, because you're never going to hear it. Well, like everybody, your curiosity gets the best of you. So I swore, okay, I will not publish anything about this. Another great story missed. He said, I'm the pathologist who did the autopsy on Bobby Kennedy after Sirhan Sirhan supposedly shot him. Says, you want to know what killed him? I said, well, yeah. Says a bullet to the back of the head. And there's not a person that was there that night who did not say that Sirhan Sirhan never reached him. Was on his way to him. Looked like that's where he was heading, to Kennedy. But before he ever got to him, all of a sudden Kennedy is shot and dropped. With a gun with a silencer, evidently. And somebody else shot Bobby Kennedy in the back of the head. And Sirhan Sirhan would be arrested and taken into custody.
Mm.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Wow.
I could never prove it in a million years.
So nobody really knows who killed RFK to this day.
To this day. My pathologist said if I were looking for a suspect, it would have to be someone like Secret Service.
Secret Service. Ah. Wow. Now, had you heard anything like this around Kennedy's assassination?
Kennedy's assassination, to tell you the truth, was so bollocksed.
John F. Kennedy, yeah.
Yeah, JFK. There wasn't much question about the fact that it was, what's his name's rifle?
Lee Harvey.
Lee Harvey
Lee
Oswald.
Harvey Oswald. And that he was the killer. Well, let me qualify that. We later, on the newspaper, with several other reporters from several different cities, everybody had pretty much accepted the fact that it was Lee Harvey Oswald whose bullets from the
book
depository
depository.
got him in the back of the neck. But you know, the pathology report indicated that the bullet that killed him came up from the front
Yeah.
into the head. And everybody that would have been impossible where the car was.
Well,
And then
someone
I got
on
a phone call from a guy who said, "Hey dummy, have you figured out who shot Kennedy?" No idea who this guy was. And I said, "No, do you have any idea who shot Kennedy?" He says, "I know damn well who shot him." And I said, "Well, how much do you want?" Because I figured he's after money, right? He says, "No, dummy. I called to give you a story." I said, "Okay, give it to me."
Oh.
He said, "Where did the bullet come from that killed him?" I said, "We don't know. It's like it came out of the ground, for damn sake." And he said, "Almost. Haven't you ever seen a storm sewer, dummy?" And all of a sudden I'm thinking,
Oh.
whoa,
Yeah.
yes, I remember walking over toward that grassy knoll, and I remember thinking, boy, because it had rained earlier that day, And I'm thinking, boy, it handled that water real well. Hold on to the storm. Never occurred to me, storm sewer?
Oh my gosh.
Oh my Lord. And later on I ran this by,
We've never heard this before.
well, I haven't told very many people about it.
Wow.
Because I can't prove any of it.
Yeah.
It came from good sources.
Yeah.
Bill Sullivan, number 3 man in the FBI, told me point blank. They shot him from the storm sewer. And I said, "And the mafia?" He said, "I didn't say that." And I said, "Bill, what are you telling me?" And he said, "David," he said, "I know you're a product of the age. I said, what does that mean? Because William Sullivan was always one of my best sources. If I had something with the FBI or CIA or that, I could call Bill Sullivan, and if he knew about it, he'd tell me.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just from covering a story for him when he came to Tucson one time.
Mm-hmm.
But we became fast friends, and I visited him several times. And then one day he told me, he said, I'm going to tell you something I never told anybody. Which was not real unusual with him. He said, you can't print a word until it happens. He said, David, Hoover started out as one of the greatest police men of his age. And he has become one of the most corrupt people you could ever meet. He's talking about J. Edgar Hoover, his boss.
Oh,
Their
yeah.
offices are right next to each other.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, holy shit. Because I'm thinking, he's knocking one of my great heroes. Everybody at that time thought Hoover was a hero, you know?
Yeah.
Well, all except Nixon.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to fire him, but he was afraid to. And the Kennedys wanted to fire him, and they were afraid to, too. But anyway, be that as it may. So Sullivan told me he was shot by a member of the government, not the mob.
Yeah.
JFK.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a special he said, something like a Navy SEAL. Whoa, that puts a whole new light on things.
Wow.
He said, now I'll tell you something else. He says, the day is going to come, and I don't know when, that they're going to kill me. Who? He said, the office next door. J. Edgar Hoover.
Wow.
They're going to kill me. And he said, all of you reporters are going to call it a tragic accident. But it'll be murder.
Wow.
When it happens, I just wanted you to know. You'd have to check your little machine for me, because I don't remember the year that this happened. But it was several years later that the story came on the line. I wasn't at the paper anymore. I think I was in the ministry by that time. See what year William Sullivan was killed in a hunting accident.
Okay.
Hunting accident.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Is all this crap still interesting, you guys?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Good.
Absolutely.
But I'm trying, a lot of times now the old mind isn't as sharp as it used to.
A hunting accident? Hunting accident?
Yeah.
William C. Sullivan was killed in a hunting accident November 9th, 1977. Does that sound about
yeah,
right?
That'd be about right. Because by that time I had gone into the ministry.
Mm-hmm.
And I got word one day, hey, you know who got killed? One of the old reporters that I had worked with years before called me. I think I was pastoring a small church in North Carolina at the time. And I get this phone call and he says, hey, David, you'll never believe who got gunned down in a hunting accident.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, who? Your old buddy, William Sullivan.
Wow.
I said, how did it happen? He was with a group of retired FBI agents who had gone out hunting. There was another person over here. The group had split up, gone different directions to hunt deer.
Mm-hmm.
Wherever William went, this guy, whoever he was, showed up and told the police when they arrived that he thought it was a deer. And they bought it.
Wow.
You want to hear what it says here?
Yeah,
It's
right.
got something on here about it. Sullivan was a former Sullivan was a former FBI official and outspoken critic of J. Edgar Hoover. He was shot while deer hunting in the White Mountains by Robert Daniels, a hunter from Lisbon, New Hampshire. The incident attracted conspiracy theorists and assassination buffs, but no charges were filed against Daniels.
Well, you see, you could see why it would cause because I'm sure that I was not the only reporter that Sullivan ever told the story of. When you see that I'm dead, just bear in mind that this was not an accident.
Mm-hmm.
It was murder. And my thought at the time was, even though I'm no longer involved, should I say anything?
Yeah.
And I thought, probably not, because they're never going to believe me. Besides, I'm sure Sullivan had more than one newspaper source, that he was working.
Yeah.
So he must have told several of us that.
Yeah. He was only 65 when he died.
Yeah. No, it was, a matter of fact, I think I even have a note from him in my files saying, when you hear of my death, they will say it was an accident. You will know it was murder.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm sure I wasn't the only one that he probably left that with.
Uh-huh.
But although, see, I never followed up on that. Now, if I had still been with the newspaper, I would have checked with a whole group of other reporters.
Yeah.
What do you hear about this?
Uh-huh.
And I didn't, because I was in the ministry by then, and I no longer cared about what the hell was.
Here's a picture of him. Sullivan in 1965.
Yep, that's him.
Oh, I'm sorry. I shocked you.
Yeah. He was one of my best sources, bless his heart.
Wow.
I used to be able to walk right into his office.
Wow.
Let me see. Ah, Mr. Sullivan. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he was born May 12th, 1912, and he died November 9th of 77. Cause of death, gunshot wound. His burial place is in Hudson, Mass.
Yeah.
Oh, he went to George Washington University.
Oh.
He was head of FBI intelligence. And he was active till the year of 72.
Yeah, see, I left to go into the ministry in 71.
Oh.
So he was still active at the FBI
Yeah.
when I left.
Huh.
Wow.
Well, that's really interesting.
He knew he was the one who first told me. He said, you know, David, he said, I am amazed at how much you know about things.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, you know so little. He said, there is a whole war going on all around the world
Yeah.
that is not declared.
Mm.
Wow.
And people are dropping like flies.
People are dropping like flies. Wow.
And I thought,
Wow.
I said, what do you mean a war going on and people dropping like flies? Everybody would know. I said, no, they don't. I said, I'm telling you, but only if you're not going to publish. I said, I'm tired of people giving me great stories and I can't publish them. He said, well, just think that they must trust you.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. They trusted you.
And he said, no, I'll
Excuse me.
tell you.
Sorry.
He said, here's what's going on that you have no idea about.
Wow.
He said, do you know that J. Edgar Hoover and I are busy burying bodies of FBI agents every week? Do you know where these FBI agents are being killed? All over the world.
Mm.
Wow.
He said, you know why we don't dare say anything? Because we're not supposed to be operating anywhere else in the world except the United States.
Wow.
We don't have any mandate for that.
Huh.
But we learned a long time ago, years ago, he said, that you can't know what's going on inside the United States if you don't have any idea what the hell's going on outside in these other countries. It all
Yeah.
comes to our shores sooner or later.
Yeah.
So we determined years ago, he said, you know who else is dropping like flies? CIA agents all around the world and in the United States are dropping dead like flies.
Wow.
And you never know it. To you, the guy that just had a funeral down the street was somebody who was an engineer or a dentist or this or that. He was really CIA agent.
Wow. Gee.
He says, you know who killed him? I said, how the hell would you know? He says the CIA agents were all killed by FBI.
Mm.
And the FBI agents were all killed by CIA.
Wow.
He said, you know why? It's called turf jealousy. You're in my area. You don't work in my area. So I kill you.
Wow.
That gets rid of you from my area.
Mm.
Oh my gosh.
I said, you mean to tell me a American CIA and American FBI agents are busy killing each other?
Wow.
They don't have enough damn foreign enemies to kill?
Wow.
And he says, I wouldn't tell anybody else this. But he says, you can see why you can't publish it anyway.
Wow.
But he said, it's true. As true as I'm sitting here.
Crazy.
And I thought,
Just no regard for human life.
oh no. Hey, listen, in this world out here, with spies and all these other characters on, there is no sense of humanity.
Yeah.
You're just a cog.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you're just something to get rid of.
Yeah. It's just like a video game.
Oh yeah,
almost.
absolutely. It's like they're playing a video game.
Yeah.
There is no.
Mm.
It's like Sullivan said. You know, one of the first things we teach our agents: don't start looking at people that you're investigating as real people.
Oh my.
Because your abilities and understanding will be changed. They're whatever the mark is for today. And Dave Hale used to tell me the same thing. Dave used to say, I told him one day I made a mistake of saying, well, I really count you as my friend. And he says, no. I have no friends.
Wow.
And you will not be my friend.
Huh.
You're a reporter. And I'm an FBI agent. And we have different times that we can share with each other that help us. And that's all.
Wow.
I think back that many times.
Yeah. Boy.
But yeah, I've told you things that I've never told anybody.
Wow.
Wow.
As a matter of fact, that was one of the few things that Sullivan told me never tell anybody.
Wow. Amazing.
So I don't know what's going on out there now. I'm not involved in it.
Yeah.
I
I'm
no
sure it's
longer-
worse than it was then.
That's the only thing I can presume, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're so grateful and very thankful that you're sharing these things with us. you
Yes.
know. It's a treasure to us
Well,
to even know you.
actually,
You know,
in a
God
way,
brought
it's
us
a treasure
together.
for me too, because I've unburdened myself of some things that I have kept secret from everybody for years. I don't even think I'd tell Colette and Clay. Colette would probably believe me, but I don't know that Clay would.
Uh-huh.
Huh.
You know, I don't think any of the family would believe any of the stuff I've told you today.
Wow.
Goodness.
No,
Huh.
Huh.
because I've always thought
We believe you.
that if the tables were reversed and I was like Little Dash, and his family, especially the younger ones, that if Little Dash had grown and become the reporter and mafia hunter and all this stuff, and was sitting down at my house, I'd want you to tell me about it.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I've never had a request from anybody in my family,
Isn't that interesting?
except Colette.
Colette, yeah. Wow. That's,
Otherwise, no interest.
Oh,
And
we think it's so interesting.
yeah.
I've often thought that was kind of interesting,
Yeah.
that you know,
Huh. Well, on that note, I'm going to go out and get the cobbler.
Oh, okay, my dear. Well, listen.